everyone to the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. We are your Aging and Disability Network for Central Ohio. Today, as part of our Plain Talk series, we have John Holcomb here with us today with Oasis Senior Advisors. He is the owner of the company. And his team at Oasis works with families and seniors in the Central Ohio area to help them find the right senior living situation for them. Oasis Senior Advisors, their services are free. It's unbiased guidance and personalized service that helps seniors and their families who are looking for senior housing. That could mean that it's independent living, assisted living, or even memory care communities. Oasis is affiliated with nearly 90 senior communities in Central Ohio and can help you find the right place for your loved one. John and his team are certified senior advisors, which is a very valued designation in the industry because of the training and the testing requirements for that education and for the certification that comes from that. This knowledge and skill set empowers John and his team to find the right senior housing option for you or your loved one. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. So today I was asked to kind of cover what is it time for downsizing. And as Patty had mentioned, we really kind of focus at Oasis more in the senior living space where somebody needs some help. So independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So very generically, I'm going to kind of cover some very 30,000 foot type of things. But then it does lean a little bit at the end towards some of the senior living options when people may need help, just because that's what I'm very familiar with, and a lot of questions that come to us are more in that area. So we'll get started. So definition of downsizing is to reduce in size, and the reason I put this in here because there's such a negativity or negative connotation with downsizing. I really like to think more of it as right size or optimized, because a lot of people are in homes that are much too big for what they really need. So I think of it more right sizing. I think it's a more positive thing, but definitely downsizing is the general term that people use when they're downsizing from their home to something smaller and maybe more manageable. So the aging of the boomers, as you can see here, 85 and plus is technically called the oldest old. And in 2010, there were 5.7 million people that kind of fit that age graph group. And then as of 2050, they're expecting 19 million to kind of really fall within that group. So you can really see a big increase there. I always found this interesting because I always thought 100 was that magic mark. And back in 1900, there were only around 3,500 people, just over 3,500. Yet by 2050, there's going to be over 750,000 people that are 100 plus. So obviously that group is not only growing, but it's definitely, we're aging longer, we're around longer, and so we have a lot more people meeting those levels. There's all kinds, and I don't know if I've captured all the downsizing reasons here, but a lot of the ones that we come in touch with or we hear from families that we work with, empty or unused space. So, kids moved out, you've got a couple extra bedrooms. Sometimes that's just too much for the family to keep up with. There are some new programs coming out that I'm aware of where some people are renting those spaces out for seniors and helping them care. But for the most part, a lot of seniors are just downsizing, and it's because they have too much space. Overwhelming maintenance. We're in September right now. We're getting ready to go into winter. I'll tell you what, even myself, snow, the ice, it can be a challenge at times. But lawn, that definitely is hard for either somebody to afford or get out and do it themselves. And then home repairs are huge when you see your roof, your air conditioning, your heating, those type of things go out. They're big challenges, very expensive when you may be on a fixed budget. Away from home, we see a lot of people that are leaving and going south for the winter. That's always happened, but I'm seeing it more and more. They have family elsewhere, grandkids who want to visit, spend time with, so they're away from their home, so they're thinking, let's downsize. And sometimes, because the market's good, right now is a good time for people to be able to get top dollar for it. We're seeing people sell because they're just not home nearly as much as they used to. Simplifying life, for me, I look at that as just more of a manageable layout. I work with people all the time who are in those old two-story or they're in those bi-levels, and their steps to get down to the basement, to go to the washer and dryer, or there's sunken living rooms. I've had a couple clients where they've had some issues because of those. They didn't see them or forgot they were there, and that can definitely be a challenge. So, try to simplify it for a more safe environment for them to live on a daily basis. I do like to joke a little bit, but I put this cartoon in here. It says, we need to move back into with your parents, and you can see they're already seniors themselves, but unsustainable monthly expenses. Things are getting expensive. When some of the seniors I've worked with retired 20, 30 years ago, they retired with kind of an idea of what they could afford at the time. Expenses have continued to go up. We've seen increases just even in milk and what the price used to be there, let alone gas and everything else. So, just trying to make something that's more sustainable, looking for different reasons, for different ways to do that, and that's downsizing as well. Maybe this is a little bit of a lean to kind of what I see all the time is people who maybe they're just not able to care for themselves in the same way as they used to. We see a lot of people who their hygiene practices are just such that they can't do it. They want to do it, but they can't do it because it's not safe to get in tubs anymore, or it's not safe to get up to the shower or up to the bathroom like they used to. Maybe they just can't do it physically anymore. So sometimes that may be a reason for downsizing. Major life changes. We see all the time people living at home. Maybe they've lost their significant other, and they just don't cook anymore, or they can't cook anymore, and so there's weight loss, and that makes them very unhealthy, as well as other things such as memory issues and just overall health as we get older. Obviously, we deal with more and more challenges there. One thing is surprising that I don't know that people necessarily think about all the time, but I have a number of people that actually move into more of a senior housing type of option, independent living or assisted living, because they're alone. I've had people who, their spouse has passed away, they've had a friend move in, they've passed away, and they're just lonely and kind of cut off. They can't drive anymore. So from that standpoint, getting them into an environment where they can thrive, have some excitement, some reason to get up the next day, friendships. Lots of times I have people say, I feel like I'm going to lose my independence by moving into a community. But so many times, once they've moved in and settled in, they start thriving because there is a lot more of that support and friendships and relationships that they develop. They just can't in their home that's empty. A couple things to think about. As I said earlier, with the 100-year-olds increasing, if you're a 100-year-old, how old, or if your senior is a 100-year-old, how old are you? You start thinking about the adult children that I deal with are 70, 80, high 60s. So they're already looking for themselves sometimes when they're looking with mom and dad, just because they're not familiar with the senior housing. Americans 65 plus have more than a 70% chance of needing some form of senior care. So that could be home care. That could be somebody just bringing in types of meals, like Meals on Wheels, whatever it may be. But 70% is a very high number. And I love this quote. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those that will be caregivers, or those that will need caregivers. By Rosalind Carter Cash. And I think that's so true. And sometimes you don't know where you're going to fall. You could actually be 2 of 3 or 2 of 4 on your own. Here's a couple of things I think people will be interested in knowing as well. Most injuries occur in the home. The number 1 cause of death due to injury in those age 75 and older is a fall. Sunken rooms, falling into things, hitting their head, very, very serious. The stairs, I talk many seniors that are crawling upstairs, crawling downstairs because they just can't make it, but that's their only option. And it scares the heck out of me when I hear that. Only 20% of the elderly push the alert button after they've fallen. I was shocked by that because we always hear the jokes about those commercials. You just think it's so rare. But I think, again, going back to some of the falls, if you hit yourself, you just become disoriented, and people don't push that button. So living on your own and having the button can help and give some sense of security. But I've also had many people who told me that just didn't work for them. Didn't work for them at all. Medication management is a huge one as well. Number one cause of hospitalization for 65 plus. Taking the wrong meds, taking the right meds, but not when you're supposed to. Forgetting to take meds or taking meds that you've already taken but didn't remember that you had. So, some form of combination of that's the number one reason for hospitalizations from 65 and older. And each year, and I'd have to double check this number to see if it's changed because I feel like that is on the rise. Each year, 100,000 emergency hospitalizations occur to drug adverse events. So, one thing I would always recommend when you talk to your doctors, I think they're doing a much better job now, but bring in your prescriptions. Make sure they know what all you're taking so that we know those are working together, because too many times one doctor's doctoring for this, the other one's doctoring for this, and they're not really talking, and you may be taking meds that should not be taken together. So at a very high level, again, you can really drill down. There's a lot of options, and I've heard of a lot more that are kind of coming on their way in the Central Ohio area. Obviously, I see people all the time downsize to like a condo or a ranch-style condo, so it's just one level. You have apartments. Some are private pay, some are subsidized through some kind of a tax credit. So those are out there. I will tell you that there is probably a shortage of a lot of those, and so the sooner you think that you may have a need for that, I would start planning for that and getting educated before you really need it, because there can be waiting lists for that. So definitely make sure you work with someone, whether it's somebody here at the COAAA or somebody else to really help you figure out what does this look like in the time frame that might take. There's a lot of independent living communities that have popped up that are just 55 plus. The value for those is you walk in the front door, there's one main entrance, so there's a security type of environment there, as opposed to all the apartments that have their own entrances into the apartment from outside. So there's a value with that, but also there's a security in numbers. When you're there with other 55, like-age, like-minded people, there's a lot of value with that. I'll get into a little bit more of that in a minute. Assisted living communities. So independent living communities are people who primarily live on their own. Maybe they need a little meal preparation. Maybe they could use a little bit of help with this or that during the day. And some places have support for that. Most do not. But there are some options, and that's where people out there in the senior housing option field can help you. But assisted living really gets into more when somebody needs help on a regular basis. At any point during the day, you might need help dressing, bathing, eating, medication management, transitioning from a wheelchair to the bed, or toileting, whatever it may be. And there's somebody there on site to make sure they're helping you all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do typically have meals and stuff like that. We'll get into that as well. Memory care facilities. A lot of people think, well, because you have dementia of some type, that's what you need. I will tell you that is a misnomer. A lot of people live in the assisted living communities that have dementia, and they're very appropriate for that type of living. Memory care is definitely for people who have certain behaviors. Again, we'll kind of cover that a little bit more, but it's certain behaviors. It is a secure unit. It's not a locked unit that people talk about all the time, or you can't get out. But there are some differences there. And you'll see lots of times communities, independent living and assisted living, maybe grouped together, and then you'll see people who have assisted living and memory care in the same buildings as well. Sometimes you may see independent living and memory care, but usually it's because it's a continuum of care. It's not all three in one location. There are some examples and some things that vary from that. Residential care homes. Residential care homes are typically ranch-style homes that are in neighborhoods. Most of the time, you don't even realize what's going on, but it is licensed for typically around 5 people, and they have better care providing numbers. So the ratios typically are 5 residents and usually 1, 2, or 3 care providers in those communities. And they definitely are leaning more towards needing memory care types of care for that. CCRCs, those are continuing care retirement communities. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but that's more of what I was talking about here, that may have independent living, assisted living, memory care. Actually, in addition, they may have some nursing or skilled care as well, rehabilitation type stuff. And then you have skilled nursing. And skilled nursing is definitely that's a step down from what the hospital is. So if you had an event, you had an injury, you had a surgery, you'll stay at the hospital as long as you can stay there. But then to get better, typically you'll go to skilled nursing facilities, which do take Medicaid or Medicare, and they also are private pay in some situations. That's going to differ based upon your situation. But skilled nursing is definitely hospital-like. It's more medical-like, as opposed to when you start talking about some of these other options, they're going to be more residential feel, a lot more apartment-like living, as opposed to skilled nursing is going to be definitely more in the realm of the medical feeling if you're in a hospital. So we'll drill down a little bit more for independent living types of communities. Usually 55 plus. Communities may vary on what they offer. So some may offer meals, some may offer transportation, some may offer different activities. So they get the people together. There's specifically scheduled activities that the community provides for the residents. And then you've got other communities that maybe it's just the apartment, maybe it's just in the building. So you have that security, but there's not a lot of extra frills, and the pricing typically is commensurate to that. So the more levels of care or the more help you get, then the more that the potentially may cost you. Communities may offer laundry services. Buildings are typically secured during certain times of the hour or during the day. Typically self-pay. Some do have some government subsidies and or tax credits, but that, again, it's going to be by location. Each community can be different. Very high level. We're not really drilling into anything specific here. As I touched on with assisted living, help with one or more of the average daily activities. So bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, transferring, continence care, and then memory care would still fall under the assisted living kind of realm, because there's still somebody there to help provide that care and support for the loved one. So, why community? You may have a community that has 2 different buildings in the Cont'd area, and they may differ significantly, whether it's pricing or levels of care. So just because somebody in one part of the town has something, that doesn't mean the other one provides the exact same thing. So what you may find is there may be different price points. There may be different care levels, which the care levels and how much care somebody needs on a regular basis can affect the price point. You're going to be looking at geographic considerations. Where do you want to be? Where does your family live? Where do your friends live? Where are you comfortable being? So those are more the geographic considerations. The amenities. There's not a lot of pools in the assisted livings in Columbus. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of movie rooms. There's a lot of courtyards, a lot of gathering areas. Is that important for you? Room sizes. When it comes back to price point, room sizes are really something that drive the price. Typically in assisted living, you're going to have a studio apartment, which is basically one room. You have a kitchenette, a bathroom, a private bathroom off the kitchenette and living area. But then you're just going to have a bedroom. and you may have a bedroom with a couch, but that's your least expensive, it's the smallest and least expensive option. You get into one bedroom, and you're actually going to have a separate room to sleep in from your living room and your kitchenette area. Then you have maybe a two bedroom, and that's obviously two bedrooms with the other amenities I just mentioned. But the larger you go, kind of like the house, the more the cost can be. Most of those are private pay. Of the communities that we're signed up with, I would tell you probably around 75 of the communities are private pay. There are some on the assisted living side that you can find out more information through COAAA as far as this program, and the Medicaid waiver assisted living will accept. There's about 10 of them, I think, that I'm aware of that we're signed up with that will take Medicaid waiver. Basically, that means is if you run out of your own private funds to pay, then Medicaid waiver potentially could kick in. It doesn't mean everybody will qualify. You have to kind of go through the process of seeing if you qualify, but that is something that would be different from just a private pay as well. And then other assisted livings, you might have some assisted livings that really want to provide care for people who don't need a lot of help, a lot of a higher functioning resident, as opposed to others really focus on people who are less able to do things for themselves, whether it's getting out of bed, they need the Hoyer list to get out of bed, or different support getting out of the actual bed into a chair. So all of that really come back to what is the price point for that community. Assisted living communities, I mentioned, could have independent living in the same space, and they may have the memory care. There would be a separate section. There's usually a door, it's a secure door, where there's an alarm, people can get in and get out, but it is a secure door that would have an alarm that would basically alert the staff that somebody's trying to leave the area. But those would still be considered the assisted living role. Usually, as I mentioned, has a need for people who have certain behaviors, whether it's potentially just exit seeking, whether it is up all night. Some may consider sundowners, where they're not sleeping. They're really kind of just unable to rest. So they're always up looking for family or friends or something from their past. So they would need to be in a secure unit so we don't have them walk right outside, especially in a winter situation that may be coming up. Typically in a memory care, you're probably going to see more moderate to advanced dementia, as I mentioned, usually earlier onset or early stages dementia may be very appropriate to be in assisted living. But if you get into more of those higher level needs, you're definitely going to see maybe the need for the memory care and secure unit. And a lot of those people do have different dementias, but Alzheimer's and Parkinson's separately from dementia. We see a number of people that really need that extra level of help, extra level of care to provide services for them on a daily basis. Kind of talk about this, residential care homes. They're licensed typically for 5 residents, 5 to 2 staffing ratio, resident to caregiver ratio. Most do focus on the dementia. They have fenced rooms or fenced back porches and yards, and they have door alarms. So again, for that person who may be an elopement or exit seeking risk, this would be potentially very good option for them. And it's not one of the bigger communities where there's so much going on. It's more of a residential feel like you're still living potentially in your own ranch home kind of thing. Continuing care retirement communities are hard to get into because everybody's a little different. So you're at a very high level. Typically with continuing care retirement communities, you're going to see independent living. Most people do come in at an independent living level. And they're going to potentially pay money up front and then on a monthly basis to live there. But then they can progress through the different levels of care or senior care that they may need. There may be an assisted living need, maybe memory care, skilled nursing. The value there is you wouldn't have to move off that campus necessarily. You could age kind of on that campus, and there may be changing of rooms, still stay in that same facility and the people that provide you that care. Age in place, and then even the spouse, if the spouse doesn't want to move in, or there is more options for the spouse, there's definitely room for the spouse to move in as well. And then again, as I mentioned, the monthly care charges and then potentially an endowment fee up front that could come into play for some places. Skilled nursing, as I mentioned, definitely medical in nature versus daily care needs and assisted living, just drawing a distinction between the two. In skilled nursing, you may have short-term, you may have long-term care, you may have rehabilitation, which is definitely still kind of short-term, knowing that you're hoping to go back home. But that typically would be through insurance, could be self-pay, and then for the long-term care, potentially Medicaid could come into play for paying for that long-term if they run out of their own funds. So lots of times people try to figure out how do you pay for this, and there's a lot of the standard type of stuff. You got your Social Securities, you got your pensions. There are VA benefits that can come into play. So if you, and I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't want to get into too deep there. But I will tell you, if you were a veteran of wartime conflict and meet other criteria, there may be some benefits that could come into play. That I'm sure that either CFAA or myself could help families direct them to the right people to get the answers for them. Long-term care insurance is something that was big in the past. It seems like they've gone through some trouble, and you've seen a lot of people pull back on their offerings. You're starting to see a little bit more of that. I would never tell anybody they should buy it, but I would always tell them that when you're talking to your financial advisor, if that's something you're doing, see how that fits into your overall plan, because on our side, when we see the expense of assisted living and what those can cost versus what your cost is per month or per year, you can save your money or earn your money back really quick through that. So not pushing it, but definitely saying, at least look into it and see if that's something for you. Annuities, obviously, if you have anything like that, you've already set up. Cash, checking, savings, stock market, IRAs, any investments, that sort of thing, that can be used to pay for assisted living. Hard assets, so you're selling your home. We've had people who didn't have anything else really here, but had a great deal of equity, and we were able to help them with that, getting them to the right people that can help them sell their home, so that they could get the money to move in. And one of the other things we've seen too is people who have equity, not pushing reverse mortgages, but just a mortgage in general. Sometimes, if you don't have the money and you've got to get the house downsized or fixed up, but you really need assisted living, we've even seen people take out a mortgage for a short term until they get the house sold. But they're getting that care that they need right away. And so from my standpoint, that kind of covers just a very high level, 30,000 foot view of senior housing. I guess a couple things I would just leave you with is that planning is huge. So many times we get calls from families. They're being discharged from skilled nursing facilities. They're being discharged from hospitals. There's been an event at home. Something's changed. And just being able to know what plan A and plan B looks like, sitting down with somebody that knows senior housing would be very beneficial. And know a year out, 2 years out, what does that look like? The biggest question I get from seniors is, or the statement I get from them is, we don't want to be put away in the old folks home. And that's something from yesteryear. Assisted living is different. It's nice. I will tell you that so many people have that feeling once they go on a tour with us, or they get out and look at the communities on their own. They realize that's not what I had in my mind. And so many people who told me said they'd never move have moved relatively quickly after they've gotten out and looked at communities. So break down that wall of concern and worry by getting out and looking at the community, so you know what you're actually in your mind's eye is really what's out there. That's one. Two, definitely make sure you have plan A, plan B. That's one of the things that we do a lot of is, if you want to stay home, how do we do that safely? How do we keep you safe there and bring the services to you through your partners and or organizations and agencies here in Central Ohio. And then on the other side is, so if you have a plan A, what's plan B? Plan B, if we ever need assisted living or anything like that, get out, look, have something in your mind so that you can plan for it. You know what the cost is, you know where they are, you know which ones you like, and especially as a senior, if you can get out while you're still healthy and able to get around, it's better for you to be part of your decision making than to let somebody else make that decision because you're in the hospital, you're in the skilled nursing and can't get out. So those are the two things I would leave you with is just plan. Make sure you don't bury your head in the sand. You actually start asking these questions before it comes time. And I think that will be a big help in overcoming objections and concerns and worries that you're seeing.